What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Epic Media Association. Also, I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and being part of that collaboration last year, I was able to reach out to a part of a team that reached out to over 100,000 fathers around the world. And there's some more news coming in regards to that collaboration. It's going to get bigger. We're not going to say yet. There's in the next 30 days something big coming. And as always, I like to say, you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I'm sounding a little bit different today. Have a head cold. It's the price of having a bald head in a cold country. So right. I'm a little bit nasally, but we're pushing through. And welcome, as always, Ryan, the media star Knight, with his black economic intelligence.
Yes.
Still looking for one of those sweatshirts one of these days.
Exactly. Shout out to
there we go.
Toronto.
There we go. There we go. What's going on? Good morning.
Yeah, always a pleasure to be here on with you. I feel like it either kickstarts my week on our Mondays or kickstarts the weekend on the Fridays. But for those that don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage they're in and then help them create a blueprint to grow their companies exponentially. I run a company myself called Detailing Nights. So we go a mobile waterless car cleaning service. So we go to people's houses, offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based, eco-friendly cleaning supplies. The season today has a mild spring feel. So I feel like the horizon is coming closer. So we're enjoying.
We're being teased. Mother Nature. Mother Nature. Like was it yesterday or 2 days ago? It was like 17 degrees outside.
And that wind just it took advantage of me. I don't know, man. It caught me complete. And we were told it's going to be windy, but I saw people on the corner like about to get blown into the street type of windy. It was wild.
Oh my goodness. I said, this is a perfect day for Ryan to wash, and they don't have to put any chamois skin or anything. They just wash it in air dry.
Boom.
Air dry. You know what? Let's bring our friend up and maybe we'll continue this discussion and then get into what he wants to chat about too, because we could go on forever. I don't want to leave him back. He's here. So who's our friend with us this morning? Our returning friend.
Yeah, and it was sparked because on Monday, we were talking about the closure of BNC, which is the Black News Channel. And we're like, you know what? We want to continue that conversation a bit this week. And we thought a great guest to come on, because we had been talking about Black media and ownership, is our good friend Marlon Stephen, that is the founder of Square Circle Ventures and SCV Labs. So Marlon was gracious to carve out some time.
I knew Marlon would be all over this when we talked about that, because I don't know if he's chatted with you, but back channel wise, him and I have had conversations about the Black Network channel. So no surprise, and very happy to have him share with us this morning. Good morning, my man. How you doing? How's you and the family?
Good morning. Pretty good. Still hoping to get through this now sixth wave, and really concerned that maybe we're not hearing a lot of information about it because we get impacted the most and we don't have outlets to talk about that, right? So, it's interesting. Anyway.
All right. But today we wanted to chat about, and Ray, we'll get back to your comment because I know you had a comment about violence, but because we could spend all day on that, we could spend all year on that. But Man, you wanted to come on today to talk about the mentality of being a consumer as opposed to an owner. And this is something we talk about enough, but we haven't talked enough on this platform. So kick it off for this today.
Well, yeah, I am in conversation with many, and mainly through Ryan. I want to give kudos to Ryan again. He's always been like the first to kind of embrace, hey, we have this stage now. We have this, we all got a number of organizations got funding, right, to create this Black business ecosystem. And that funding is, one, not over time, right? It is this time, this year, and it was almost a reaction to what we've all seen with, particularly with, unfortunately, my brain seems to freeze, seeing that public lynching of that young man, got everybody into quote unquote action, right? But the actions were, again, it wasn't designed like how
George Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd, right? Like it wasn't designed, right, to be almost sustainable, right?
True.
It wasn't, hey, let's look at what are some potential solutions to address this issue, right? The issue was entrepreneurship. Well, there's a deeper issue. There's a wealth gap, and a lot of it has to do with, yes, both a historical context and those types of things, but there was no attempt to look at what's the best way to address this issue. Okay, regardless, the funding is out, those are the things. All right, what are we doing, right? We're designing programs that may or may not produce or secure what's there already, right? There's no long on-ramps, right? We're consuming, where we've designed a way to consume it better, not to actually build those building blocks of ownership. It's funny, like when you get a contract, right? It's for the level of that contract. But, what I say to folks, even, in my world, right, VCs, right, the world's greatest incubator, right, owns a piece of everything coming out of their incubation system. And that's the point, right? They give you money too, right? But that's the point. If I believe in it so much, we want to own it because that's going to help us sustain going forward, right? That is one of the stipulations of the money. You can't actually use it to purchase anything that you own. You have to spend it. And if you don't spend it, and this is some of the organizations are learning this, you know what I mean? If you don't spend it, you don't get it again, right?
Yes.
I know of many organizations, not even in the ecosystem, right? But that got funding for really good programs, whether mentorship programs, a number of other programs, right, that are out there, right? And they just were watching the money in the bank, literally, right? And so a lot of the funders called them up and it's like, we want to know what you did with the money. And they're like, oh shit, we have to do something now, right? And they're calling
Remember the what they call March Madness in public, where the spending in March to hit before fiscal. It's like,
this is it, right? Tons of people are doing that because it's like, no, we're supposed to look at it and how do we now, right, leverage it so that, yes, we own some of these things. That's what an ecosystem is, right? So yeah, I'm doing a lot of things both behind the scenes. As an African Canadian economic summit, you know what I mean? Trying to design new ways to pay for things like that, because Africa is one of the, like, the people in Africa, the average age is like right around 20 years old, right? The most innovative time. And what you have is underdeveloped infrastructure and a whole bunch of things that it's like you can make crazy money, right? But the folks who are even exposed to it, right, are usually the ultra rich, where they're spending 30 cents. It's the equivalent of like trying to buy property in the GTA right now, right, is obviously impossible. Funny enough, buying large plots of land in Kenya, you name the country, where very tropical, very underdeveloped, can be developed resort type living, the urbanization, and the returns on that, right, over the next 20 years are going to be astronomical. And you don't even have to listen to me. Think of where countries are moving, right? If you right now want to do manufacturing, a lot of China's manufacturing giants are moving into Africa.
Of course. They got it.
For a number of reasons. And they're not, by the way, they don't just move they don't just move their company, they move their people too. There's
Yeah.
people going into Africa.
Yes.
There's literally little cities being built, right? That are all workers, right? And again, we're not engaged in that. The diaspora is not engaged in that, right?
Okay,
That
just want to interrupt you for a second. Some comments
Mhm.
here. Doug Minter saying Marlon's correct. I have concerns about the lack of true working capital available in the form of lines of credit versus loans.
Yeah.
So that comment that Doug said, Marlon, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, well, no, that's one of the key pieces, right? Most of the folks, unfortunately, coming, they don't have the companies yet, right? So they don't have a need,
Yeah.
in a sense, for working capital, right?
Yep.
And the weird thing is, like I've literally very recently helped a number of people. One of the things that even early on, and I can always tell Ryan listens faster than most, right? Is like ACBN. We told them, one of the weird things, one of the reasons why I like people to get involved with NACO, for example, is Royal Bank has a relationship with NACO, right, where they initiate from any NACO funded incubator or accelerator, right, which there's no other Black ones except me, right? Even though some of them may use sponsorship through DMZ, you're still, again, going through another party to even get the okay to get there, right? We're trying to make sure that we're in control of that more. But yes, there's a $50,000 credit line, right, attached to that with RBC. Now, with us, right, we're looking at, well, could we buy some, whether it's property, GICs, number of things, so that we could back that credit line as well, right? And maybe increase it more. But we would do that and be more amenable to doing that if we also have an equity stake in that company. You see, one of the things that I'm trying to say to all the ecosystem members is have a stake in it. Then you work that much harder. Your network then becomes, the thing that you work. Like I do that naturally, but it's starting to come together. Like even this African Canadian summit, right? How it came together, right? Number of Africans that live here, obviously, right? They usually go back, sent remittance. We think the Caribbean is big, right? Remember, we're still, the whole Caribbean, right? The whole Caribbean, including Cuba, right? Maybe 10, 11 million people, right? That is the capacity. Ghana, 30 million. Nigeria, 40 million, right? You name countries in that, there's over 1 billion people there, right?
Yes,
so you
yes.
find solutions to whether it's move money around. It is just different. Remember, all of Canada, right? All of Canada is about approaching 40 million. The last census isn't through yet, right? When we're thinking about markets and who's going to buy products, services, those types of things, even Canada, right, would benefit from some of these trade movements happening. The government almost then, that's a reason to actually invest into the ecosystem as opposed to what they're doing now. We could say, hey, we have this infrastructure project. It'll be $5 billion, right? We're going to develop an ETF. We want you to back it, right? And help promote it as one of the things that you're doing, right, with the community. But instantly different.
Yeah, because are you seeing like that mindset of having ownership, or even I think there's at least 10 accelerators that are starting in this ecosystem. None of them I've seen with that model. So how do we introduce where us actually investing into our companies instead of just taking loans from the bank and saying like, because that money is just flowing out of our community. It's really supporting whether it's RBC, BMO, whoever.
Yes, exactly.
Loan.
Yes.
Like, how do we shift that for ourselves?
That's how, well, we're doing it, right? We're slowly but surely, you've invested, quote unquote, not necessarily like through contracts or something else. I am invested in, I want to turn that into stock into what we're doing. But what we're doing is still trying to empower our own community, right, to invest in itself. Like the weird thing is there is a lot, our money, like just, how many of us have about 25? First of all, I've learned a lot since starting, right? I thought everyone was at, the level of sophistication that they needed to be, and all I needed to do was create this opportunity for people to get involved. I've learned, and very, very personally, right? That's not so, right? Like,
Yep.
as I said, I talked about it. A friend of mine doing well works with a bank. Funny enough, a lot of these folks work at banks and are
Yes.
not financially stable to roll. As I said, that's
Yes.
where the consumer idea is there. I want to show you how much money I have, right? By buying a car that I am, working hard. Like when I look at my budget, right, 90% of it is taken up. I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses. I'm trying to make sure that I have a 3,000 square foot home. I have a the right cars, and everyone is wanting to see the thing of my spoils. That's being a consumer, right?
Yeah.
It's really
Yes.
it's much like I'm pretty modest. No one ever knows how much I have when I don't have, right? And unfortunately, the last 2 years, right? Investing, doing those types of things, especially the hands-on that I've had, that I work the way I work, right? I had to I had to go into places and savings and investments that were not intended to touch for years, right? To survive, right? And at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, I want to work with these organizations, right? To, the U.S. again, right? They've been doing this for a little longer, right?
Right.
So they understand. So a lot of it's funny, a lot of the not-for-profits actually fund some of the big VC funds that first round capital, run by a Jewish gentleman, Josh Koppelman. The few times that I get to speak with this man, brilliant, all of those things, but he was an entrepreneur too, right? But that's where he, a lot of his money comes from not-for-profits. So that's also where he gets what I want to fund. You know what I mean? So he's funding, you see, you're funding solutions to problems, because that's what an entrepreneur really does at the end of the day.
What problem are you solving?
Yeah, right. Like, again, the wealth gap is my big problem. So I'm always, there's like a constant pivot, because I start learning, oh, well, people aren't at that stage. But does that mean that I change my trajectory? I might change my approach, right? But I won't change the trajectory. It's like, okay, this will take a little longer. I need to switch this. Oh, I need to work with this. And, you learn a lot as well. Like, there's 30 different folks that got a little over 35 million or something, 30 different organizations, right? A little more than that, right? But
it's actually around 40 that got close to 100 million.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? So 40 different organizations got 100 million, right? There's going to be a report card on this. Now, we're actually going to create it too, but nonetheless, there's going to be a report card on this. And most likely what's going to happen is there's going to be a ton of programs, right? But I'm not sure how many viable businesses and businesses that go beyond the solopreneur. It's not about, you come in and you have to meet people where they are, right? That's the other thing that I've learned, right?
I'm going to stop you just for a moment, because I want to catch up, because there's been a number of comments. I don't want them to be left as you're going on here. So Macmillan Group's going, the opportunities on the continent aren't new. So why are Blacks in the diaspora so disconnected from that process? We don't have to go as far as Africa. Also saying, even the Caribbean, there are the same opportunities as there is a young, entrepreneurial, educated demographic. Tim is saying, preach, Marlon. This is what I preach in my own ethos to all my teams and partners. Again, Macmillan Group, it is important to understand population and demographics when exploring opportunity. Great points, and thanks for pointing out the size of these markets in relation to Canada and Black Canada. Surf Life, amen. Surf Life, preach. Macmillan Group, we all make the error of assuming everyone is living at our reality. Mistake number one. So we're caught up with comments. Just wanted to catch up there.
We'll start answering them as we take later on today, right? Ryan, myself, Doug Minter, and a Canadian who's been living in Africa And I say Africa because he's never in one country for too long because, again, of trying to understand all of the opportunities. And the number of Africans here, right, are putting together an African Canadian summit. But even with the African Canadian summit, Ryan's been on a number of calls of the things that I'm trying to pull together as a network. Sherelle Dorsey, who, yes, Dr. Vi, we will get on here eventually as well, right?
Yes.
Was talking about all of those things. Her growth, she's looking at growing to the Caribbean, Africa. And we're probably going to be the conduit, right? Because that's part of the superpower. Hey, we have to know about them. Technology exists where we can know about them every day and we can understand them every day. We're just not taking advantage of them. We're taking time on LinkedIn, right? And doing that to get the most people, but not the people who are going to be impactful. I tend to, not everyone is going to be involved in this, but that doesn't mean that we don't think about everyone. The community doesn't invest. Saving is the problem. So investing is just another stage, right? Like,
yeah.
It's like, and even saving, do you save in your mattress? Save at a bank, that's not a good spot even. Still, they're not necessarily giving you anything for it. Saving at an ETF. Most people don't know what an ETF is, right? Exchange traded funds. All that means is, other than a private equity thing of which I started, right? That's where I wanted to start. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe it's better as an ETF, right? Because I want individuals to get involved in that. But I also want them, if they have a liquidity event, right? Like, there's an emergency, they may need to get out of it right then and there. So now it's like, yeah, maybe I do have to develop an ETF as well, right? Black folks are the ones who you need to invest in your own future. Yeah. But understanding that, again, having a vehicle for that, none of those things exist, which is an incredible opportunity. And a good entrepreneur finds the opportunity and starts pulling it together. You may change the tactics, but that's what it is. That's why I've been trying to talk to all of the other ecosystem folks, right? To say, well, yes, some of it, whether it's through contracts, like, still do the job that you're going to do, but at the same time, develop a sustainability plan. Yeah. Ryan was like, he just immediately, he goes, we don't even have a budget. I don't even want to talk to the thing. I'll just get this much and then we will figure it out as we go along. That's literally what he said, right? Because it was like, yeah, I hear it, and this is how I'm going to be involved. And that's why most of the meetings that I will have on this, like I said, I'm working with Sherelle Dorsey. First thing she said is, maybe we'll have like a dinner up there, right? And I'll bring some of the VC folks, like, the Harlem Capitals, all of those things. And we'll have a dinner with most of the folks and discuss this more clearly. I've never been up to Toronto.
So this is interesting you mentioned that, Marlon. Again, I'm going to put some comments up, but I also want to touch that point right there. Tim is saying none of the 100 million is helping Black businesses scale and franchise from 1 to 2 locations to 50 locations. It seems like the money is helping sole proprietors survive. Doug saying, I love the comments from Marlon about the relative consumerism in North America, and most of the world's financial systems are built on this. Let's see. So here's a question. Let's be honest here. Let's be real. If Sherelle brought up all those people, what percentage of the people that attend do you think are ready for that conversation?
Well, that's why it's a curated experience.
Right.
Unfortunately, right, as I've been talking to a number of the organizations, a lot of the people running the organizations aren't ready, right? So, and it's not a photo op for me, right? It is a curated experience. That's why we're working so hard way before. Like,
so
right?
let's just interrupt there, and let's now hybrid that on in regards to the Black Network channel. Compared to what Roland Martin is doing.
Okay.
So I could give some background, but obviously give some people some background on what happened with the Black Network channel compared to what Roland Martin is in, because he did the crowdfunding route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, well, the bottom line with media is you have to have an audience before you increase your production
values or
level,
presence,
value,
yeah,
whatever you want to call. You know, because a lot of folks, like, you know, again, folks would call me, hey, we have to save the radio station. We have to save the radio station when that was going down. I was like, no, we don't. There's a problem, right? We have a problem in the media. If it's not subsidized, it doesn't exist. That's why I have a hard time thinking that I'm going to build a media conglomerate from here, right? The population isn't big enough yet, right, to support it. So unless it's a much more mainstream, and don't get me wrong, radio is a unique space where most of the you know, if you do R&B and rap, and we populate it, right? We're the production, right? The issue with that, you still pay licensing fees for all of those things, right? And you still do all of those other, you still have a cost structure,
fixed
that
costs,
is significant, and they're fixed. You have to pay them every month, right? So if you're not attracting an audience, it's why I said about like the restaurants, right? There's lots of people who love Caribbean food, but if only Caribbean people are buying it, you're losing. And I don't mean that means you change something. You make it more authentic. That's the point. They want to come and get Caribbean food, but they shouldn't feel like they're doing you a favor being there. If your service levels suck, if all of those things, they're not coming back.
Yeah, it's ironic. I'm going to give you an interesting example. Yesterday, I went out to pick up some food at a chain, probably the most prominent West Indian chain restaurant, takeout place in Toronto. Not going to give the name, but if you may know what I'm talking about. So I went in there. So I put in my order. It was supposed to be ready at 6:39. I got there at 6:30. I didn't get my food until 7:10. That's not bad. What was really interesting though is that there was a couple that came in to order food, and this lady was busy and all that. She didn't even acknowledge them, and they end up leaving.
Okay, you see that?
I said, wow. Like she didn't even acknowledge that they were waiting. And okay, they were not melanated on top of it. Right? And they were there for a few minutes, weren't even greeted. And I'm not doing a stereotype thing. I'm just saying this is something you can't do, because that money helps your restaurant. Like that's the 10x crowd that you're looking for.
Well, listen, I still
go ahead. Go ahead.
Because now that person that walked in there and left is telling this same story to other people that could have come and
I could tell by their communication, they were not, English was not their main language. I think they were from either a Spanish or Portuguese community. That's money you want in
the community.
So Marlon, we got some questions for you. We got some questions. I know our time's going to run out soon, but we got some questions. Christopher's asking, I got a silly question. If grants and loans dwindle away, will VCs still exist, or will more VCs be ever so present?
We don't have a lot of VCs in this community. There was a number of them started. They're still trying to fund themselves, one. Some don't exist anymore, right? Unfortunately. And a lot of the people who started them, like, they're more vilified than they're embraced, right? Sometimes when you go and you do this, unfortunately, a lot of people leave you, and that sometimes is talent going to waste. In my case, I'm just kind of recalibrating and trying to educate and work with some of the folks who did get funding to turn it into ownership and a way forward, right? Because it's not going to happen. You can't rely on it to happen again, and it's not their problem, right? We can articulate the issue, right? But it's not their problem. It's ours to solve, right? And that's as simple as it
Well,
is. It's
that's
ours to
where
solve.
like there'll always be people looking to invest their excess capital. So the grants and the loans, those are just different ways that people invest back. But now what I find is missing in our Black community is the people that make these announcements about, hey, we're starting this fund. They're not able to they're not able to capitalize it. It actually it does a disservice because people are looking forward to it. And
Mm-hmm.
then when it doesn't materialize, it's like, okay, now what do we do? So
Mm-hmm.
the lack of VCs in our community, to me, is one of the biggest issues, and we have to figure out a way to strengthen those. And
Mm-hmm.
like you, I
Well,
think you're talking about Y Combinator, like
mm-hmm.
be the farm team to these
Yeah,
exits, like
yeah.
develop our own, right?
Yes, but that is the conversation, right?
Mm.
We can keep doing what we think we can do. Consultants never own anything, right? Unless you're talking about the big consulting crews, because then they do. They literally go off and buy buildings and do other things to secure their positions, right? But consultants don't own anything, right?
Mm.
Service businesses don't usually earn anything. It's just money moving. We have to recognize that we have to execute, to own things, to collaborate. And that's what the, like what I'm not putting an agenda for our meeting later, but I'm just going to kind of refer to it because, but like, yes, there's first the introduction, there's an overview of the potential opportunities, but then there's this is the start of the conversation. We continue to have it even after the quote unquote event, right? Because we're building something that's got to be sustainable.
Here's the next question, also from Macmillan Group. Entrepreneurship isn't new to Blacks. Why is scaling so challenging in the Black Canadian community? And it seems to be across different business types. Your thoughts?
Well, again, lack of wealth, right? Across most, right? Like Theranos, right? Theranos, $4 billion in valuations and money going into it, right? 6 million came from family and friends initially, right? That was it, right? The family and friends could then call up their VC guys. Listen, she has a really great idea. She's lying, but she has a really great idea. That's actually what happened. Like,
Yes.
think about it. Like this is happening at least to some of the folks that I work with. It's like, we're looking for those potentials. We're going to send them to you after, Marlon. Cool. I'll do what I can after, right?
Mm.
But that should be part of the whole process, right? Like, what's the reasoning? What's the program? Where are we? It's like, and this is partially the government's fault as well, right?
But
It's partially our fault, but it's what we do
mm.
now and how we kind of reconnect now. That's what's going to. This is how we're going to kind of create that value.
Yeah, and I wanted to piggyback on the Theranos analogy because that's one piece that's missing in the Black community as well. There's no space for us to fail. Like when people are calling around, it's like, oh, I invested in this new thing, it's the hottest thing. There's disposable income or investment dollars or capital that people can throw at that and be like, okay, let's see what it does. In the Black community, it's like if you don't come with perfection, you don't even get in the door.
Yeah,
So
that's very true.
Right? There's nobody just saying, "Oh, here's 100 million," like SoftBank did for WeWork, and actually it was like 10 billion. Where there's like, "Yeah, we believe in it. Here you go. Like, here's a blank check." You never hear those stories in the Black community with any of our businesses.
Well, those are why we have to create them, because again, there's a lack of wealth. Right.
When can we the C consumerism? We have to turn that C from consumerism to collaboration.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the conversations are about. And it's less about, like, Ryan knows, like, nice to have a meeting, but what are we doing after?
What are the receipts?
What are we doing next?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
What are, it's like constant movement. We had our meeting a week and a half ago with Sherelle, right? She wanted, hey, let's look at dates. I've since African Canadian Summit, whole number of things that it's like, when, where, right? They've been throwing out July. That's probably not going to be a good time. Later August or fall is what I'm thinking. But how impactful could it be? What are some of the actual things we can do? Maybe then you can go to the federal government and say, hey, we have this opportunity to, as a coalition, to put incubators, other things in Africa. We're talking 30, 40 million people that need these kinds of infrastructures, that need these kinds, and we are the best conduit, right, for making it happen.
Yes, yes.
That is something to invest in. That is something to invest in. That is something for the MasterCards, the whatever to invest in. That's how we have to come. But that's how you leverage your network to even create these opportunities. And unfortunately, Ryan knows. Ryan sent out to every one of the organizations, right? Everyone, and no, it wasn't one of those where he sent out one email.
No, one by one.
To everyone in one by one.
I beat him to it. I think I had told him a while back.
Mm-hmm.
The organizations I didn't have relationships with,
Mm-hmm.
I sent them an email saying, hey, congratulations on getting this amount of money. This is what I do. I showed my credibility, said, hey, would love you to come on the show just to talk about your organization, promote your organization. How many did I hear back from?
Zero, because you're not handing them a check, right? As Jay-Z says, no, I'll pay you. I'll pay you. Like, I've literally tried to tell them, I'll turn maybe a contract into equity, because eventually I want to literally keep you alive. But I also want you to look at your existing practices. Did it work? Right? So that we can change them, so that we can actually support. That's what it's like. Membership at all of these organizations that purport to serve the Black community. There's nowhere near, they don't know who like I tell them about successful companies because I know them. I know the individuals. They're not there. They're not in those organizations because they can't provide them any level of value. But I might, because one of them is an online pharmacy. If I now go and create that, he can maybe sell drugs home at a cheaper price, right?
Yeah,
just from
me,
the
infrastructure for it.
Leveraging what I know and what I understand. Yeah. And yes, eventually going to Ryan, okay, now we have something to go to the government. And if they don't fund it, they have to answer why.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really, really, really true. I fully agree. It's all based on relationships, really and truly. Like
your
a lot of it is relationships, and also people realizing they need help and asking for help.
Oh, I always do, whether I have millions or not. It's how I've learned. Like I came into an industry at a time, I've been in tech since the early 90s. That's when there was no Google then. There was no Facebook then. There was Yahoo starting. You know what I mean? There was a number of things. Many people don't know. Vibe magazine, a media company, was the first, not Wired, who was also in that group of companies. Vibe magazine was the first thing online. The first magazine online. They had the first Vibe.com. And because of the people involved, because there was Black folks running that organization, right? They just started like literally collaborating with many people. One of my literal best friends, I didn't even realize he was a Nigerian until the other day, Nigerian immigrant. Like Sadiq Bello, right, is who invited me, Omar Wasau, who's now a professor at Harvard, Dread, half Jewish Dread, right, that used to do tech ecos for Oprah when she was on, right? So all of those Oprah, there's lots of things, got tons of money from Samsung, again, just from being in New York, right? I got introduced to all of those things and all of that big money. And because at that time, your propeller head, the fact that you could do stuff and put stuff on a screen on the web and stuff like that was in high demand. Not many people could do it. There wasn't classes on doing it or anything yet. And some of the, like one of the people that are in Canada, like the same guy that we're going to talk to today about the African Canadian, he was one of the people who like was like my godfather, just about 5 or 6 years older than me, but he had been at Delrina building software for Delrina. That was the first fax software, by the way, right here in Canada. Delrina, right?
Cool.
Which then went to FrameMaker, which was the basis for PDFs, right? He went on to be at Adobe and for years was an executive at Adobe, made tons of money in that space, right? I would get all my Adobe products from him. They were trying to recruit me at one point, right? He, right, went back to Jamaica with his earnings to develop a transportation system better, right? Bought trucks and something, got taken, whatever. But now he's in Africa looking to do the exact same thing, right? And it's like, you know what? I'm not mad. You know what I mean? I'm looking to build this. This is where I see the opportunity. Is his younger brother used to build video conferencing booths for AT&T. He's been in all over Africa developing. He has a development system like tech doing that all the time.
So, folks, we're going to start winding. Well, I don't know. We're going to start winding it down pretty soon. But as you see, Marlon is dropping knowledge bombs. And as you see, you've got some insight on a power meeting that's happening this afternoon with some of the giants of the environment, the Black environment. Oh, okay, he's back in. So here we go.
Yes, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Yes, but we're literally just trying to now start to organize these things. Doug Minter, Ryan, some others, those are two of the organizations that have already kind of joined in. Please, all of them join in, because we have to actually create these opportunities and strengthen ourselves, or else they don't get done, period.
One last question here. Christopher Lawrence says, how does an entrepreneur receive money from Samsung? That's a long answer.
The office is in Meadowville.
Take that offline. This is
Their venture arm is completely in another space, right? As I said, there's even introductions, sometimes when you're at a university, because one of the incubators, right, at a university, U of T, my alma mater, actually, right? But the gentleman, he's like, look, that's my job. I still want to engage with the rest of the community and strengthen this ecosystem outside of it. So he's taking and this is something that isn't happening a lot. Not a lot of people are going on the line to say, yeah, well, that's my job, but I still am going to work to kind of strengthen this ecosystem, even though my job is about getting more students into U of T, right?
Perfect example I'll give to Christopher and other people here. There's a gentleman who I know we haven't seen each other for 10, 11 years. And he is a business development manager for a large, how can I say, stationery company, one of the large brands. I'm not going to say the brand. So I reached out to him. I sent him a video introduction, just catching up with him. And I said, hey, is there any way that what I'm doing, there's any potential collaboration with your brand? Because he's the head of business development. I didn't know anyone there, but I said I'd start with him.
Yeah.
And he messaged me back saying, I won't take you down the rabbit hole of doing it with this company here. I'm going to expose you to another community where you have a lot stronger opportunities for collaboration and to make some dollars. So
gotcha.
As I'm saying to people, shoot your shot. But what I would say to Christopher is, where's the alignment between what you're doing and what Samsung's doing? If you can't recognize the alignment, don't even start. Don't even start.
And that's something that's part of what not I do, what I'm trying to make sure all of the ecosystem folks do. That's naturally what Ryan does as well, right? But, it's one thing to be exposed to banks. It's another thing to be exposed to stuff like NACO. I'm sure he learned a lot in that global summit, right? On what Canada is trying to do with their diaspora, right? There's a lot of that early money, right? One of the co-founders of eBay, PayPal, right? Canadian, right? They're billionaires. They send it back through the community. They have literal conversations, right, with Justin Trudeau, and they'll talk about it and they'll say, oh yeah, we'll do this taxpayer funding to help you here. It's like, all right, cool. I'll put the rest and we can go. this is where we need to be. But if you don't own anything, and if
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
a servant of it, there's not much that you can really affect. So
Christopher's asking, do you think restaurants would receive bigger, better profit margins if they invest in their customer service?
yes, and their
Sure.
supply chain.
Sure.
Yeah. Buying at Don's Meats doesn't give you much opportunity to develop.
Yeah, it eats up all your
a number of ways to do it.
Yeah, so your margins get eaten up. And I think to know your costs. Know
Reduce
your costs.
them. There's ways to do it. There's so many ways. There's so many. That's part of the solution. You know, why isn't there a restaurant, a black restaurant buying club? You're buying the same stuff.
Yes.
You have to source goat, other things from the same place. It's a great way to cooperation, co-opetition, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Doug Minter's favorite word.
Yeah, like again too, why isn't there a black, how can I say, distributor of all these products to these organizations?
Well, that's, you know, there's I can name you so many immigrant companies that did exactly that and are billion-dollar companies servicing their community, right?
So Make It Happen Show wants to know about what meeting are you referring to that will take place after. They'll update you. We'll update you either here or through their channels. We'll probably here too. You'll get updated. Christopher's saying, who in our ecosystem specializes in this training topic of customer service? Brian, would you have anyone
watching right now? Tim Frey is a great trainer.
Yeah, there's also, I know the Chamber of Commerce has programs of customer service. I know about 2 or 3 people that provide Afrocentric customer service.
Gotcha.
There's a difference between customer service and Afrocentric customer service. Again, won't go into the details, but I was involved in an organization that hired an educational institution to do customer service training to a totally black audience.
Listen, there's very few companies, right, in our community that even have a training program internally. You just jump in and you're on board. You don't get stuff like, I've always said, one of my first things would be this, right? You know, McDonald's used to have on their board smiles free. I would be like, you can get fired, family, friend, whatever. You can get fired, right, if you berate unnecessarily any customer.
Of course.
And if we are starting to find, like literally, you can even find where, you know, you do your own service thing. You send a friend in. How long did it take you to get service? You have a meeting on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that, those things, it's like the fact that it's there, people know, you know, they're aware, you know what I mean? But if the person behind the counter doesn't care, it's going to permeate everywhere.
Bad news always travels fast, and digitally it travels even faster. Right?
Exactly.
Because Stacey Ann is saying we need to group buy, especially in the retail hair conditioning. I never say never, but that train has already left.
Yep, long time. Again, we have so many things with just collaboration. Right now, if you wanted to source black hair, funny enough, right? You have, like, this summit might create that opportunity. There's 30 million people who can supply some of it, right?
Absolutely.
But where would you buy it right now? That connection has to be created and used for us to start seeing those gains.
So Stacey Ann saying group economics is everything. Well, yes, I agree with that. Chris is saying hashtag Tim Frey. Stacey Ann saying we should be dominating the ownership of digital streaming services, but we keep putting our digital creations in other people's platforms. Interesting. Nicole is saying I've done that for some of my clients. I have to go back and catch up. Yes, you do. You know what's interesting? I was mentoring an entrepreneur the other day. I met her for the first time. And I said, like, what's your goal for the business? Oh, I want to sell it within 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
I go, okay, is your plan to sell it to someone who looks like you? No, whoever gives me the most money.
Right. Well, that just goes to show you, like, think of saying that to a VC. There's VCs who love that idea because they'll be the buyer, right? Maybe
Yep.
if it's a good business, right? But there's other folks who, and this is the weird thing about VCs, particularly in the early startup seed stage, it's more about the founder. What is your vision? Because I want to help you see that. You were talking about WeWork. The SoftBank guys saw the same vision. It's like, yeah, we want to see that. It wasn't about the money. It was like, no, we want to see that.
True.
Right? We'll get the money. Right? The idea usually is you solve the problem, you get the money. Right? And that is very true. Right? Now, sometimes you're lying about solving the problem. That's a different story. That's the Theranos story. Right? They never solved the problem yet, but they were getting money for doing that. The weird thing is she could have been honest. She could have said, look, we're 10 years away. Right? But you would have probably gotten less money, and Walgreens wouldn't have said, yeah, let's
100%.
put some clinics together,
Yeah.
So
What did they? And if you want to add, Mr. Ryan?
No. Listen, I know we're over time, and I do got to run. But Marlon, always appreciate these conversations. Looking forward to the meeting later. And again, we've been plugging away, and we're going to continue to. I'm looking forward to seeing this all materialize.
Yep.
Well, thank
Trust.
you, Marlon. And I'm gonna be asking you an offline big favor. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna see if you have some time to maybe come and share with the intake of these Black entrepreneurs with the City of Toronto program. I think your insights would be really, really valuable. So, for people are saying, or Chris was saying, I think anyone who would like to advertise customer servicing, it has a proven track record. I would like to connect. Okay, so Christopher is looking for people. Great, solid. Dave Lindsay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Stacy. And if people want to get in touch with Marlon, I'm going to put up his contact information right here. Here's his email address. He will take your call. He will take your call, but come correct.
Yes.
Right? Come correct. And he has a lot of evaluated
experience. Ready to get to work.
Yes. And then there is a website, Squared Circle Ventures, Inc. Marlon, always pleasure. I'm going to be talking.
Ecosystem partners, please join so that I could start filling out some of the other stuff. Like literally, right? Because I don't want to just put pressure on Ryan, right? Or Doug, who is working hard away at contracts and a whole number of other things. It's like it is going to be a collaborative effort, and you can go on your own, but that's what it's going to be when that funding stops too, right?
Yeah. And that's a very good point. There's a small window of opportunity. Time flies fast, folks.
Yep.
Time flies fast.
We have to create these, these vehicles, these containers, so that we can be sustainable. Trust me, a check, they're fleeting. You know what I mean? I can get contracts, right? I don't need contracts. I don't need that. I want to be able to collaborate with these organizations so that we are able to filter people through what they need, and yes, own piece of it, right? Like, yes, maybe we put out $1 million, right? That is, hey, we put out $1.5 million for 10 companies, right? They have to go through our system. A big part of the system is getting and growing your customer base, right? Who do you hire? Like, people always think, you got 20 million. Well, you got to put talented people in place to be able to grow that bigger.
Right. And that's what we saw happen with BNC. They got the $50 million check and wasn't able to leverage that to make it sustainable.
Exactly. Right. 50 million isn't enough. Right. So you have to then, that's 50 million. Like Roland Martin said, how do I spend 10, right, to get, because it's going to take me 5 years to get here. And if we don't see these metrics, we can't go on, right? In the white world, they may, again, Uber has raised more money than any, but they've also warned you, we may never make money, right? For that reason, right? They don't get the bulk of the sale, right? But they have, 10,000 employees. Just think about that, right? And they're not the drivers. The drivers get the least
Right.
Like at the end of the day, right? The people who Uber has, working at Uber, you're not going to work at Uber for anything less than 250K,
Yeah.
right? And benefits
Yes.
and a whole bunch of other things, right? You're not going to do that. And stock options, that's also important, right? Because
True,
you want to
true.
own pieces of it, right? These are the realities, and we're not yet in those positions. We have to create those positions. There
Okay.
are opportunities, and we have to develop them and take care of them. That's what
On
these meetings are about. That's what all of these ideas are about.
on that note, we're going to let you run. Always all the best to you and your family. You have a place here anytime you want to come on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Remember to give
And
yourself
touch
grace.
base,
Pardon
and
me?
don't forget to touch base after.
Oh yeah, we will.
All
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Be well. All right. Epic conversation, folks.
As always,
As
love
always,
it.
what's going on with you? I know you got to run. So what's going on for your weekend?
Good question. This weekend it's pretty quiet, actually. So
Ooh.
tonight, First Fridays is happening, and in Empowered for X, we're gonna have an intimate, watch party. If people want to come by, we have a couple presenters. The theme is branding and marketing. So if you do want to do a bit of networking tonight, we're only there's like 15 spots, so I'm not sure how many are left, but definitely check out. We're gonna be posting and sending out the email blast soon. So join us tonight or watch online. First Fridays is happening, and then I'll be able to chill out for the weekend. How about you, sir?
Uh, a number of meetings today. Then tomorrow morning, I have to do a presentation at 9 o'clock for a group of men, for a men's group. That's at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Then at 10:30, I have to do a presentation for Centennial College media students. And then
Excellent.
they're doing to do a Q&A after. Then I'm going to take a break Saturday afternoon. Then I have State of Things with Aisha and Jill tomorrow night, and it's an Ask Us Anything. So you can ask
Oh,
us
nice,
anything
nice.
at 9 p.m. And then Sunday afternoon, the Black Canada Talking, we have the gentleman who's behind Black Sun Comics.
Oh, yeah, big fan.
Yes, so Black Comics. And then Monday morning, we're back.
Looking forward to it.
So
Awesome.
that is it. Thanks everyone who watched us live on the replay. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. You can catch replays on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook, ACBN on Facebook and YouTube now, and Ryan Knight on LinkedIn and YouTube. See, he's getting most of the space. Jeez. He's getting most of the space. So, folks, like to say, everyone have a great weekend. Thanks again. And as we say, as always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. And as always, it's important to manage your time, but it's more important to manage your energy. See you on Monday. God bless.